Hi everybody, and welcome to this evening's event by the London Society. The London Society is an organisation founded in 1912 for all who love London, and it organises events, building visits, conversations that celebrate and debate the key issues about the future of the capital. I'm Lauren Teague. I'm an account director at Ing Media, a communications consultancy for the built environment. I will be hosting tonight's conversation with Ellie Stathaki and Anna Stathaki on the Houses of London. This event celebrates the recently published book by Ellie and Anna called House London, an extensive survey of London's homes told through stories and photography and inspired by the diversity and imagination of the creative design approaches found within London's homes. The book explores the different interior styles that are hidden behind the traditional London facades, from humble terraces to luxurious conversions. I'm sure I'm not the only one here who's secretly intrigued by snooping around other people's homes or looking for design inspiration to steal from my own home. So we'll be covering the different themes and typologies covered in the book, as well as discussing further our guests' thoughts on best practice on design and how London's changing vernacular is represented through its homes. So I'm very pleased to introduce the author of the book, Ellie Stathaki, and photographer, Anna. Ellie is architecture editor at Wallpaper magazine. She trained as an architect and studied architectural history at the Bartlett. And after a brief time in architecture practice, she focused on architecture journalism and has contributed to Blueprint, the Financial Times, The Guardian, as well as co-authoring a number of books on architecture with a particular interest and focus on housing. And Anna is an interiors and architecture photographer based in London with a background in fine art and history of art. She graduated from Westminster University's Photographic Studies MA and has since had work featured in books as well as leading interiors and architecture titles in the UK and internationally. Just before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. So the event will begin with a short presentation, which will be followed by a conversation with Ellie and Anna. And I'll open the floor to questions for the final 15 minutes or so. Do submit your questions throughout in the Q&A function, and I'll try to get through as many as possible in the time we've got. So without further ado, I will pass over to Ellie and Anna to talk about House London.
Thank you so much, Lauren, and thank you to everyone for being here and joining us for this webinar and chats. And a massive thank you also to the London Society for inviting us to do this event. We're kind of very happy to be here. So as Lauren said, my name is Ellie, and this is Anna. We also have two sisters, and we worked on this book together. Just to also note right at the beginning, Anna has joined us very kindly, but she had just had a baby. So apologies in advance if you see a little hand or a little human head. Hopefully not. It will all go smoothly. But she's here. I'll be doing most of the presentation. She's here, however, to ask any questions or chip into the discussion. So let's start. So our book is called House London. And in a way, it's quite straightforward, as the name suggests. It talks about houses, homes, and London. So I thought I'd start, or rather we'd start by telling you a little bit about how the idea of the book came about. So both Anna and myself, we grew up in Greece. We came to London for postgraduate studies. I'd say 15 years ago, a couple of decades ago. And I guess when we kind of arrived and we were familiarizing ourselves with, London's built environment, exciting, learning about this new city, this pretty huge new city, we were very kind of impressed and, kind of struck by the housing stock. I guess in part because where we came from is quite different, but also we felt it was a very kind of London view, this sort of rows of periods, often brick houses that you find. And of course, they're not all the same. And there are similarities in material, there are similarities in their historic character. And of course, this is something that can be found in many parts of the world, many cities. You've got like, you know, Amsterdam's sort of slim canal houses. You have the Paris sort of great big grand blocks. And even within sort of London's period homes, there are different eras, different details. Even within the same sort of period in the same street, there might be like differences between two neighboring homes. But kind of in a way, broad strokes as often as well, you find that maybe whole streets seem to have the same kind of type. Even like whole neighborhoods of chunks of the city have similar periods or similar style period houses, to the point where sometimes you can almost like recognize and say, oh, this is like a sort of 1930s home, so we might be in the outskirts, or if it's a Victorian little tiny workers cottage, so we might be in East London. And we just thought it was fascinating. Next slide, please. And then, oh, actually, next one too. I skipped one. So the thing is, you may get these rows and rows, same houses, same front doors. But the thing is, you walk inside, and once you're inside, I mean, anything goes. You could find like this kind of really exuberant, like high decor homes. You could find really minimalist ones. You can, there is no end really to the kind of variety in my experience. And I suppose through our work, me as a sort of writer and editor in architecture, and as a photographer, and she kind of deals with interiors a lot, and a lot of domestic interiors as well. We both have the privilege to gain access to many of these homes and see lots of different styles. And over the years, we were impressed by the sort of richness and diversity in approaches when it comes to creating these kind of residential interiors, which seemingly kind of often are similar, but inside completely different. And we kind of felt, I guess, we thought that maybe other people would enjoy that too. And we kind of put our minds together and decided to create this book, which essentially celebrates kind of this variety and this creativity and imagination of London, London homes. And we can offer through this book a little sort of peek inside what's going on in this, inside this kind of brick period buildings, which may give nothing away from the outside. And so the book was born. Next slide, please. So we organized the book in 5 chapters. The arrangement is more of a functional vehicle for the book's structure, rather than a very kind of strict categorization. I mean, if you flick through the book, you will see that some entries could sit in more than one category, and that's fine. There might be a lot of overlap. It was a decision we took in order to kind of, I suppose, break down the number of entries. We have about 50, well, no, we have 50 homes in the book, and it makes it easier to navigate more than anything else. The first chapter is called 21st Century Modern. It's looking at homes which were, I suppose, on some level inspired by the modernist movement, sort of 20th century, mid-century style. Very well known, obviously, as an architectural and design style. It has defined a lot of the past century, and I feel it still kind of has, you know, can be found in many expressions today, and its influence is very lasting. So this could be expressed in the homes in the book. I mean, it could just be simple things like types of materials, or like, you know, timber, or the chosen furniture. So you get a mix of sort of vintage pieces with contemporary. And don't get me wrong, all these homes are very sort of contemporary styles, but it's just the kind of, you know, maybe they have a little flavor that this is what inspired them. For example, here we can see, it's the project's called Falls House. was designed, it has a beautiful extension, it was designed by a studio called Bureau de Change, and with interiors by the owners, Alina Caripidu and Stefan Rusunis. Next slide, please. The next chapter is called Raw Industrial. So it addresses designs, I guess, that work quite a lot with the period fabric of the building. So often they've, exposed walls and floors. They've added a bit of sort of roughness. They went with a more maybe utilitarian approach that can be applied. Some like purpose-built homes are like that, but also this chapter includes homes which have been created in maybe more industrial settings as well. We have some sort of warehouse conversions. We have for
a church.
Yes, pardon?
A church.
Yes, a church. And then like this as well, like the home and former office of 6A architects in central London, which is sort of made up of, I guess they kind of put together these outbuildings at the back of a sort of Georgian terrace, if memory serves, and they kind of started adding, they bought one sort of warehouse type building, they moved their office there, then they made it the home, they bought the next one, they stitched them together, and it was a work in progress for a while. I think the last thing they added was their gorgeous garden. But you can see from the photo, it has this kind of bare aesthetic, but basically what it does is it connects with the building's heritage and industrial sort of nature. Next slide, please. We have a chapter which we call Crafts and Heritage. It looks at homes that drew inspiration from either the building's kind of own heritage, its period possibly, or the owner's personal heritage, or the owner's historical fascinations, like maybe they have a passion for a style and they kind of went with it and kind of styled their home according to it. So there are hints to past movements and styles, and they define the kind of interior. I guess a lot might also be kind of pre-20th century. The example we have here is Kemi Lawson's Cottage Noir, which was a sort of Georgian cottage in the outskirts, kind of northwest London, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, around Harrow.
Yes, and she has styled it beautifully with objects, art, patterns that kind of express her and her family's heritage, which is kind of mixed Caribbean and African. Next slide, please. We've got a lot of homes in our color and pattern section, which, as you would guess, are based heavily on the interpretation of color in space. So we have some that are more kind of really kind of bold graphic approaches. We've got more sort of painterly ones that are a bit softer. And this is, I mean, when we say color, is not just about sort of bold primary colors. I mean, it could be anything. We have, for example, interior designer and influencer Natasha Jones and her husband, who owns a contractor firm. They have a lovely house in Richmond, and there is about subtle shades and pastels. So almost like kind of absence of bold color as well. That's a color decision too.
Or it could be black as well. That's a color too.
Yes, like very monochrome approaches to. Here we can see Mountain View House in South London by architecture studio called Can. It's the founder's Matt's own home. Next slide, please. And then the final chapter is called Minimalism. It names it all. it's about more sort of part down approaches to interiors, homes that may have been stripped down to the basics or have gone very sort of polished, clean, white spaces, calming, or maybe even this kind of minimalist approach as a sort of unifying kind of vehicle, I guess. We can see here the Tonkin Liu's sort of sun rain rooms, which, I mean, their sort of new bit is an extension of the back, which is very modern and has like amazing curves, and a reflective pool and plants and everything. And then this is the existing home, which again, they sort of united through the use of white color and neutral colors and natural materials like wood and cork, and they've decorated it quite kind of simply with their personal collections and items. It's gorgeous. And then next slide, please. Yes, so I guess more than anything, I mean, we have these chapters, but the bottom line is, I think this is not a book about a specific style. It's not about what's trending now. We're not promoting a specific aesthetic. We like everything. We like the variety more than anything. So we wanted a book that is about the richness in our design approaches. It's about the imagination and ingenuity of architects, of designers, of homeowners, and to talk about how this can lead to very, very different results. And each one is very valid, and all of them add to the kind of incredible and often very hidden sort of mosaic of London's housing stock. So this can be expressed in different layers and readings in the book. So for example, beyond the styles, we have homes by different authors in a way. So we have homes by architects, architecture studios. We have interiors created by designers or interior architects, interior designers, product specialists. We also have some by inspired and very passionate homeowners who, you know, might be linked to the creative industries and have some access in that way, but are not trained architects maybe themselves. So here we included some examples. There's like Nimtim Architects Cork House to the left, and the 21st century modern chapter. The middle one is Camille Letange, who is a stylist and art director. Her house, Bohemian House. And then we've got...
Sorry, Camille is a good example that because she has a passion in interiors, but she's not an interior designer or an architect.
Exactly. And, you know, her home is beautiful.
Exactly.
And then to the right, we've got Finchley Home by designer Eva Sonaike. She worked with a studio, Casper Müller, near architects. There's an extension, but then Eva, I think, is behind all the kind of interior decor. She does patterns, designs, fabrics herself. So like you can completely see her personal style kind of shining through the whole space. Next slide, please. And then we have also a lot of diversity in the level of transformation, I guess, that each project showcases. There are homes that have changed a lot, have been added to, like there's, you know, rear extensions, side extensions, loft extensions, walls have been knocked down, you know, whole apartments have been stitched together. But there are also homes with very, very minimal intervention to the building fabric itself. And the focus is mostly color and decor. And this still has a sort of very big impact on the end result. I mean, you can see the variety here. So we've got sort of Forest House to the right by architecture studio AOC. It's the home of two of the sort of partners there. And they have like complete, I mean, you can't see it from the outside, and that's kind of the point of the book, but you know, they have changed it completely inside. Like there's a side extension, 2 floors of side extension, if memory serves. There's a rear extension.
They added different materials.
yes, the materials inside, especially the new bits, I mean, it's very kind of clear what they've done. You know, double height spaces there, everything. And then next to it, we have, is it in North London? Yeah, Sunita's
Northwest.
house. Yes, Northwest, exactly. So Sunita Kumarnair, she is a fashion stylist, a creative director, a beautiful, very creative person. And she, I guess, she styled her home using all her kind of personal collection from her travels, from her work. You know, obviously she chose materials as well, but like, I don't think the house has a lot of heavy kind of structural intervention, for example. She didn't change the spaces, the spaces very much. And then, of course, we've got examples like Kaleidoscope, the super sort of bright pink space.
And this pink here, she didn't actually do any structural change. The only thing she's done is the decoration. So it's, again, a different kind of style.
Completely. And, you know, it's I mean, it's bold, but it's super effective as well, just through color and furniture. And yes, it's pink, and she's called Mrs. Pink as well. Next slide, please. So yes, and then while the kind of, I guess, the biggest part of the book is purpose-built homes, we decided to also add some sort of repurposed structures. We have in the book also kind of distilleries, warehouses, we have breweries, we have community centers, we have a church, or maybe more than one church actually, because we felt that they too add to this kind of fabric of brick period structures that make up London's homes. So we just felt it was kind of interesting to have this kind of comparison as well. So, you know, Wilton Way to the left by architecture studio Freehouse is a purpose-built Victorian terrace, which, you know, has been transformed. And then the middle one, Bavaria Road Studio by West Architecture, and in collaboration with like the owner who did the interiors, creative entrepreneur Morgan Rimmel, was a Methodist church. And I mean, you can see it's a beautiful space, and she's done it very gorgeously, like very minimalist, but also with lots of plants and, you know, color punctuated by color here and there. And then the last one there is called Sycamore House by designer Tim Gosling, and that is in a Georgian villa, but it's made up from uniting smaller apartments in this kind of grand big villa. So I think Anna will know more, but like they, you know, Anna remembers more, I think, because
he actually
has the whole floor.
Yeah, now he has the whole floor, but initially he had, you know, he bought like one apartment, and then the next one got sold, and then he got the next one, then he joined these two, and then he got the third one, and then he joined the three. So actually now he owns the whole, he actually put back the whole actually floor.
Yes, and he has a very distinct style as well, kind of celebrating this kind of Georgian era, you know, and this is, as you maybe guess, in crafts and heritage chapter. And so I don't know, there's next slide please, and last one. So I guess the bottom line is that we kind of wanted to talk and celebrate and share this kind of amazing diversity and richness in you know, London, creative London interiors. It's you know, creative communities and its people, because I guess this book is for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That was a really interesting overview of a presentation, and I've got some questions to get us started. Questions have started coming through from our audience members, so please do continue to put those questions in the Q&A section, and I'll kind of have a look at them as we go through. But to get us started, you talked about the process you went through to create the book. I wondered if you could touch on how you went about choosing the specific homes to include to end up with that kind of curation of 50 homes? Some are by well-known architects, others are by homeowners. How did you kind of choose them?
I guess because through our work, we both come across quite a lot of examples. We try to have as big variety as possible. So as many that look quite different and have something different to offer. So even within, like, say, one chapter where you say kind of, I don't know, whatever, minimalism, like they, you know, I guess often you have one thing, one image in your mind of what minimalism could be, but there are many different ways. You know, there is, you know, the kind of John Pawson type minimalism, but also there is the Japanese sort of traditional homes kind of minimalism. You know, so we've tried to find different expressions of various styles, and I guess our goal was to have the widest spread possible for the reader, I guess.
Yeah, and through work we see so many, I mean, I see so many houses anyway. I'm going in so many houses. So we kind of had a start, and then the difficult bit was to actually to curate them and find which 50 to choose, because you can find a lot of houses.
Yeah. There are always homes there, but you just, it's kind of in the edit as well, kind of to make it quite a lively and interesting. I mean, maybe, I don't know, and if maybe we should say something about the pandemic, because that also was a big factor in some of it. Like, you know, we did this book during sort of the first year of the pandemic, so there were a lot of lockdowns.
So the strict lockdown, basically. Not ideal to go and shoot 40 houses. So we started, like, we had kind of like, we knew the 10, I've done them, you know, just before the pandemic, and the pandemic hit and I had to shoot 40 houses. So that was a challenge by itself.
Yeah, and there might have been, I think, one or two that maybe we didn't get because, you know, at that time of the production, it was not possible to get in. But yeah, maybe for the next book.
And kind of through that process of collating and investigating those homes, what would you say kind of constitutes like good design? What, based on what you've seen, you know, what is good design, and how is that constituted through the homes in London?
Well, I would say, I guess what fits the person who uses it more than anything. I mean, it's easy for me to say, oh, it's something, you know, like amazing, lovely, or this style or that style. I think at the end of the day, what the design needs is to kind of serve the users each time. And as often, you know, the users in homes are very much kind of involved as well in the kind of design and creation. Hopefully that works out well. But I think that's kind of it. I don't know. What do you think, Anna?
Yeah, the same really. Like, I think if you're creative and you want to spend time at your home, you can do actually quite a lot of things. But there are always, you know, the professionals that they can help you out, and you can even create something even better. And, you know, they are affordable people, like affordable interior designers, or if you want to go more high end, you can do that. Like, you know, there is, you know, variety. So I think there is space for everyone.
And was there anything that surprised you or was unexpected as you went through the process? So kind of in terms of the demographic of the owners, or the difference between the kind of, you know, London's got a vast geographical reach. Was there anything that kind of surprised you throughout that process that you discovered as you went along the way?
No surprise. No, I don't think so. I don't think we had any surprises. I think Ellie might have stuck a bit. Internet might be down, but no, I don't think so. Like, yeah, I think the biggest surprise was actually, apart from, you know, the pandemic was the biggest surprise. Apart from that, you know, we kind of had a lot of houses. Like, you know, we knew through work we could find a lot of houses, and then, you know, just it was a matter of like sit down and curate them well and find the chapter. I mean, Ellie really, and find the chapters and put everything together and linked everything together. I think that was mainly, the challenge. But I wouldn't say surprises. No, I mean, no.
And I suppose from a photographic point of view, was there anything you found on the inside that kind of didn't match the outside, or that was, really different to what you were expecting based on the external architecture?
The inside is always a surprise. The outside, you see everything is the same, and then suddenly you go in and it's a totally different thing. Like, it's always a surprise. Yes, that is a surprise. But in terms of like shooting, or in terms if something bad happened, or it wasn't really. Everything went quite smoothly, and everyone was so lovely as well, and they wanted to be part of it. So yes, like everything went okay.
And I suppose I have to ask, do you have a favorite house?
Like, a lot of times we were actually discussing this with Ellie, because something was coming. I was like, oh, what do you think? But because, especially for me, that I went in all these houses and I met all the homeowners, all the designers, if they were designers or architects, or, it's very hard for me to choose. If I take it out of a, personal home style, how is my house, I think I'm a bit more of the minimalism. And I think Ellie probably would be 21st century if we put them on the chapters. But like, to choose one in specific is very hard.
And would there be a house that you think, oh, I wish I could have included that, like a house that you couldn't get access to, or a house where you don't know the owners, or is there something that you would have loved to have included that you couldn't or didn't because of the practicality of shooting in a pandemic?
Yes, I mean, definitely. But we had one which actually we really wanted to include, and it was quite special because it was for like it was made for a person who had mobility issues. So they made it in a way, the architects, like they color every room, so had such a special flow. But unfortunately, we couldn't include it just because of the deadline.
Right.
I know. So, I mean, sometimes like it's nothing to do with us. But yes, like other than that, I'm sure, like, through the years, I would be like, oh yeah, that house could have been in this category, or that house. But yes, that specific one is just because we really wanted to include it. It was a really special one. But, I mean.
What was so special about it?
This is what it was. Like, it was like made specifically for this person who had this mobility issue, and the architect had done it so nicely. And through, like, somehow the room, like, they put colors. It was like they added the colors in a way that the person could flow around and help her. It was really beautiful. I mean, what I said, the next book.
One for the second book.
Yeah.
And just a kind of a final question before I start looking at kind of the audience questions. Obviously you've kind of both been in London for a long time now, but you did grow up in Greece, and of course that has a very different traditional vernacular to London.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder whether you think that gives you kind of a different eye when you're examining these projects to somebody who's been here forever.
I suppose yes, because I grew up in Greece and the houses are totally different there. I think I was actually looking, and I'm still looking the houses differently and with a fresher eye than someone who grew up here. And it always excite me, like, you open the door and it's like a Victorian house or a Georgian house, and then suddenly it's like something it's a surprise what is inside. And I think definitely I see everything with a fresher eye.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll move to some audience questions. Hopefully Ellie, she's in process of hopefully joining us. So a couple of questions actually on a similar theme. So I'll kind of try and cover them off in one question.
Sure.
But obviously London houses have so many different styles, so many different areas. And there's a couple of questions here that touch on that, and what do you feel characterizes a London house when there's so many different styles, and is there kind of a thread that pulls together what you would consider a London house to be?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if it is exactly like, I suppose quite modern maybe, but then thinking about it, like I have in my head examples that they haven't been, super modern, but they kept a character. I think it's totally personal and has to do with the homeowner and what the homeowner wants to present, because a lot of the houses, they, I mean, we have a whole section, the craft and heritage, that they actually brought stuff through, their heritage, and they put them into the houses. So they're still London houses. So I think it's the variety and the diversity more than anything that actually a London house has.
And did you have any kind of tick boxes of categories? It must be this or this to be included. It must be a brick building. It must be, I don't know, over a certain number of bedrooms, or did you have kind of some
not in
categories?
kind of size of the house, not really, but it had to be a brick house, or yes, the brick, basically. That is the common thing in all of them. Like brick house, like a warehouse would be brick, or the church again is brick. I think everything is like the kind of standard brick English house. I think this is the common
theme. Is another question from another anonymous question. Can you tell the difference between the professional and the passionate amateurs?
I mean, someone who is not in the industry, probably they couldn't tell a difference. Someone that is in the industry, I think they could tell the difference. I mean, if you see a massive extension with, different materials and quite unique and shapes and everything, you can't say that this is an amateur person. It must be an architect behind. But, if it is a matter of just decoration, yeah, maybe that could be just someone who has a passion. But again, at the details, you can see if this is an interior designer behind or not. Only like, details, probably someone who haven't been, I forgot. Anyway, mainly I want to say that a professional, that you need basically a professional for some houses to make it look slick. But, this doesn't take out of the amateur people that if you have the passion, that you can do your house as you want to do your house and make it look beautiful.
A question from Julia Nichols, who says, my home suddenly feels very inadequate. What aspects of other people's houses have changed your attitude to your own home improvements, to your own home environments? Sorry.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know, really. Ellie could reply that better than me.
We'll try and come back to that question if Ellie's able to rejoin us. Okay. Is it possible to create gorgeous homes on a small budget? I think there's a few comments about the houses in the book looking like very expensive, luxurious.
They look very expensive, but they're not all of them very expensive. So actually, you can do that one. I can reply because I speak to all the homeowners. So yes, you can actually do a beautiful house on a small budget. I think is if you have the vision, and if you want to share your vision with someone, I'm sure there are professionals that they can actually help you on the budget, and even as a consultation, and then you continue the project with your own budget and by yourself. But yeah, definitely you can do something. And all these houses, what is nice is actually they're not all of it. They look some of them, they might look actually quite rich, but they're not all of them rich. Maybe it should be a question like, guess which one is, and I can tell you which actually had the budget and which didn't.
There we go. Use the Q&A chat function to make your predictions. Okay, Joe East says, I suppose living here, we're not that surprised by the diversity behind the front door, but was it a surprise to you? And I suppose part of that comes from kind of your, your background, and were you kind of surprised by the people who lived in some of these homes?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's always a nice surprise actually to see. I mean, come on, everyone wants to go in someone's house and have a sneak peek and see how they look. I mean, even if when I'm working in the street, even if I'm going into houses as a photographer, still I'm looking through the window to see how this house looks like. So, definitely is a surprise. And yes, and the Greek houses are different. I mean, some of the houses we shot, I mean, out of my head now, the first one on the 21st century, the one that Ellie mentioned, that actually has a Greek homeowner. And she combined both of the styles, like, more internationally, and then being here basically, and have her Greek elements around.
And in terms of the owners of some of the houses, did the interiors reflect the characters who lived there?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the fascination of it, really, because it's quite nice. It's like you see, like, you dress like your house. It's somehow like that.
Hi Ellie, welcome back.
I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry.
Anna has been fielding the questions, but I've saved a couple back for you.
Oh, I think internet, it might not be.
Sorry. The internet went down. Yeah.
I think still is not great, is
it? Stuff. Let's go into the discussion.
Yeah, sorry Ellie, we're really struggling with your connection coming through, I'm afraid.
Oh, can you not hear me?
No.
Oh no, it's not gonna happen, is it? Would you like to ask me something and I can give it a go?
Yes, the sound is coming through a little better. Okay, so I did have one other question for you, specifically following kind of your article in the Evening Standard on awkward layouts, and I wondered whether you could talk us through some of the more innovative solutions to problems of layouts or modernizing homes that you came across.
So I'm so sorry, you'll have to repeat it because now my end sort of disappeared very briefly. Well, sorry.
Yeah, just asking about.
Would you mind asking it again?
About some of the more kind of innovative solutions to modernization problems that you came across, where things needed to be adapted or modernized or improved in terms of kind of layout.
I mean, there are lots who have made a lot of changes. I think, for example, one that was especially kind of stands out, I think, is the distillery. I could go for an industrial project, but they're not projects that were designed for, as homes. So, and in particularly the gin distillery one, it had no kind of windows that looked outside. It was quite kind of a landlocked sort of project. So they had to be quite creative with leaving space on the outside, on the periphery, and allowing sort of windows to bring light in, but like in terms of use outs, yeah, they had to like plant some trees or get quite creative, but it was mostly towards the sky, you know, kind of looking up. I thought that was a very interesting solution. I also really like cork house, Nimtim's cork house. They have a beautiful aesthetic anyway, but I thought, you know, cork is a very kind of lovely, tactile, sustainable material, and I find it works very well with brick as well. In its materiality, it almost takes the same color sometimes, and it's not very widely used at all. And I do feel that maybe there's, you know, kind of scope for it to kind of be used more.
Nikki Garrick has asked, are you planning a second book? And would you perhaps look at another city or houses in the suburbs, or what would you do next?
Well, that's a good question. And actually, hang on, Rowena suggested maybe I turn my video off. Maybe that's a good idea, actually. Maybe that will, let's see, at least stabilize the sound that people can understand what I'm saying. So we, you know, that when we first sort of came up with the idea, we could like easily see, you know, House New York or House Paris, or, you know, different similar styles. Yes, I can totally see how we don't have anything in the works right now. But I mean, yeah, there's absolutely scope for the similar kind of, you never know exactly. I mean, we started with London because we live here and that's kind of what we know and see every day. But there's, yeah, definitely House New York, I think, easily.
Well, actually, Alan Burns has asked a question. Do you think there's similar variety in terms of houses in other cities, maybe major European cities, or somewhere like New York? Would you get that same variety, do you think?
I'm sure we would in many of the big metropolis. I think, I guess the homes maybe up to a point reflect also maybe a demographic variety. I'm not sure if that's right. I'm just thinking out loud. So I don't know, like in London, you have, you know, people with very wide experiences, people from all over the world, maybe that kind of informs a little bit the interiors as well, in the way if people bring their own sort of histories to it. But I mean, maybe that's also not true because people travel a lot these days. I would think so. I would think so. We're all different and we express ourselves in different ways. So this, I feel, would be natural to kind of be expressed in homes interiors, because it's the place where we, you know, I think I might have called, you know, we style it to ourselves to fit who we are and what we feel comfortable with. And this means very, very different things for different people. And that's absolutely how it should be. So yes, I think variety would always be there.
The final question from the audience: are people using more sustainable materials? Is that happening in kind of domestic homes as much as it is across the rest of the built environment industry?
I think they do. However, I mean, yeah, I think they do. Like you have, you know, we have Series House, for example, Anna, right, where she used all these amazing sustainable paints as well. Like it doesn't need to be like a massive like gesture, like a big, you know, material that you can see screams sustainability. It could be small little things like the paint you use, or the fittings you choose, or how much you involve kind of you know, wellness elements in your design.
Or reuse furniture.
But at this,
that could be like quite a lot of
reused anything really, like doors, you know, it could be many things. I mean, that, I guess, obviously, you know, the like architecture can be quite a slow profession to change, because it takes a while to build buildings. Of course, if it's more about the decor, this could potentially have more quick kind of immediate effects. But then if it is about like building more sustainably, yes, I'd say people are definitely interested and you can see this happening. But I mean, it would take a while for for it to be kind of completely more like widespread, I think, just from the nature of the business.
And so a final question from me, obviously playing on our obsession with kind of looking through the keyhole at how other people live. I obviously have to ask, is there anything that you saw that was absolutely horrendous?
Hard to tell. No, I think the answer is no. I don't think so. Like, I mean, obviously none of the houses we've included, I mean, they're all beautiful,
of course.
obviously, but at the same time, I don't think we turned anything down to, you know, due to it being horrendous. I mean, I don't know what horrendous would even kind of be, I guess. I think you know, as long as your home is right for you, like it can never be horrendous, can it? We all have our styles and our aesthetics, but I mean, that's absolutely fine. As the book suggests, variety, you know, spice of life.
A good democratic answer.
Yes.
Save those for the second book.
Exactly.
Sorry, I think I've just had one more question.
Go on.
Okay. So for any further questions, I'll just close by thanking Ellie and Anna for their time in speaking to us this evening. I hope you'll agree it's been an insightful conversation. And thanks to you all for joining us this evening. Do log into the London Society website to check out the upcoming events, including a talk with London Public Health Chief, Professor Kevin Fenton, on creating a healthier and fairer London. And all enjoy the rest of your week.